Melissa and I were already arguing when my mother-in-law put down her wine glass and said, "Claire, apologize to your sister-in-law." I looked at Patricia across the Christmas table for what that was apparently the wrong answer. There were 11 of us squeezed around Patricia and Robert's dining room table with Christmas music playing softly from somewhere in the living room, and a ham sitting between two casserole dishes nobody had touched in 10 minutes. My 3-year-old daughter Lucy had reached for a glass angel hanging from the little decorative tree behind her chair. I'd caught her hand before she touched it. "I've got her, sweetheart," I said. Melissa had leaned back and sighed. "You always think you've got everything handled." I looked at her. "Excuse me, you heard me. Then say what you mean." Daniel, my husband, glanced at me from beside Lucy. Claire. That one word irritated me more than it should have. Not because he was being rude, because I knew what it meant. Please don't. For 12 years, that had been Daniel's preferred method of dealing with his family. Don't answer. Don't react. Don't give Mom anything to work with. It worked beautifully for everyone except me. Melissa shrugged. "I just think maybe if you watched her more closely, Mom wouldn't have to worry about Lucy breaking things. I was watching her. That's why she didn't touch it." There you go again. There I go doing what Patricia cut in. Enough. Melissa was trying to help. No, she wasn't. The table went quiet. Patricia stared at me. I'd seen that expression before. Usually I backed off when it appeared. Christmas seemed like a particularly stupid night to stop. "Claire, she said you're embarrassing yourself." I almost laughed. "I'm sitting in a chair talking, Patricia. You're picking a fight in my home." Melissa made a comment about my parenting. She made an observation. Of course she did. Melissa pushed her chair back an inch. "See, this is why nobody can say anything to you." I looked at her. "If you have something to say about how I raise my daughter, Melissa, say it clearly." Patricia's voice sharpened. "Apologize." "No, I remember Robert saying, 'Patty, maybe we should just eat.'" Nobody listened to him. Patricia came around the table. I thought she was going to take Lucy into the living room. Instead, she stopped directly in front of me. "You have been disrespectful to this family since the day Daniel brought you into it." I stood because I suddenly hated having her tower over me. "I'm not apologizing because Melissa insulted me and I answered her." The first slap came so quickly I didn't understand what had happened until my face was turned toward the Christmas tree. "Someone gasped," Mom Daniel said. Patricia slapped me again. Then a third time. Not movie slaps. Nothing dramatic, just 3 ugly fast cracks from a 68-year-old woman who had decided she was allowed to put her hands on me. "You're trash," she spat. "My son deserves better." I heard Daniel's chair scrape behind me. Then Patricia pointed past me. At Lucy. "Take that trash and get out." That was the moment the room changed. Lucy didn't know what trash meant. She knew Grandma was yelling. She knew her mother had just been hit. And she knew everybody had stopped moving. Her little face crumpled. "Mommy!" Daniel was on his feet before I reached her. He grabbed Lucy's coat from the back of the chair, then took my hand. "Let's go." Patricia actually looked surprised. "Daniel, don't be ridiculous." He kept walking. "Daniel." "Nothing." I picked Lucy up and she buried her face against my shoulder. Robert said, "Patty, enough." It was several minutes too late. Nobody followed us outside. The cold air felt good against my cheek. Daniel strapped Lucy into her car seat while I stood beside the car holding her stuffed rabbit and realizing my hands were shaking. He came around to my side. "You okay?" "No," he nodded. At least he didn't tell me I was. We drove home without the radio. Halfway there, Lucy asked from the back seat, "Is Grandma mad at me?" I turned around so fast the seatbelt caught me. "No, baby." Daniel gripped the steering wheel. "You didn't do anything wrong," he said. Lucy thought about that. Did Mommy Daniel looked straight ahead? No. That answer came faster. At home, I took Lucy upstairs and ran her a bath. I let her use too much bubble bath because I was in no mood to enforce reasonable soap consumption. She was back to making a plastic mermaid swim around the tub within 10 minutes. 3-year-olds can sometimes recover faster than adults. I couldn't. When I came downstairs, Daniel was standing in the kitchen with his phone. I stopped in the hallway. "No, Dad, this isn't another family argument." Silence. Then Daniel said she hit Claire. Another pause. 3 times. His voice changed on the next sentence. "She called my 3-year-old daughter trash." I leaned against the doorway. Daniel listened for a while. Then he said something I didn't understand. "Tell her everything." He ended the call. "Tell her what?" He looked at me. "The house." I stared at him. "What about the house? I'll explain." I folded my arms. "That phrase has not had a great evening, Daniel." He gave a tired little nod. "Fair." Before he could say more, I asked the question that had been sitting in my throat since we left. Why did it take this? He knew exactly what I meant. "Claire." "No, I'm glad you walked out with us. I am. But why did your mother have to hit me before you finally stopped telling me to ignore her?" He sat down. For once, there was no defense ready. "I don't know." "Yes, you do." He looked at the floor. You just don't want to say it yet." Neither of us spoke after that. About 2 hours later, Lucy was asleep on the couch under her favorite fleece blanket. Christmas dinner had become peanut butter toast for me, and half a reheated burrito for Daniel. His phone rang. "Robert," Daniel answered. "Dad." I watched his expression change. Robert spoke for maybe 20 seconds. Then Daniel closed his eyes. "All right." He hung up. "What happened?" He rubbed his forehead. "My mother just found out. Found out what Daniel looked over at our daughter. Then back at me. About the house. About Dad's money." He paused. "And that after what she did tonight, she doesn't get to decide when she sees Lucy anymore." That got my attention, because until that moment I'd thought Christmas dinner was the explosion. I was beginning to understand it had only lit the fuse. Daniel didn't explain everything that night, mostly because Lucy woke up crying around midnight, and after that Christmas became a blur of warm milk cartoon reindeer and 2 adults pretending the house wasn't full of tension. But the next morning, while Lucy sat cross-legged on the living room rug opening the presents we'd brought home from Patricia's, Daniel finally told me what his father had said. "Mom knows about the gift." I looked up from a roll of torn wrapping paper. "And she knows about the house." That landed differently. For 6 years, Daniel and I had rented the same narrow townhouse with beige carpet, a tiny backyard, and one upstairs bathroom that always seemed to know exactly when 3 people needed it at once. We weren't poor. We weren't reckless. We were just ordinary people trying to save enough money to buy a decent house without making ourselves miserable for the next 30 years. Patricia had never respected that. She had opinions about rent, opinions about my job, opinions about what cars we drove, where Lucy went to daycare, how much we spent at Christmas, and whether Daniel was thinking long-term. Once at Thanksgiving, she watched me put my purse on the back of a chair and said, "Well, there goes another square foot of your future house." The purse had cost $40 at TJ Maxx. I'd owned it for 4 years. I laughed then. I'd laughed at a lot of things I shouldn't have. "So, what exactly did your father tell her?" I asked. Daniel sat on the arm of the couch. "Everything." That turned out to mean more than I'd realized. A few months earlier, Robert and Patricia had sold the big colonial they'd lived in for more than 30 years. Their new condo was smaller, easier to manage, and according to Patricia, more civilized than maintaining half an acre for no reason. After the sale, Robert had told Daniel privately that he wanted to give both him and Melissa an equal amount of money now, instead of waiting until some future inheritance. Not millions. Nothing dramatic. Enough to matter. Enough to change the timing of our lives. Daniel and I had been saving for years. His father's gift finally pushed us over the line. We found a 3-bedroom house in an older neighborhood about 20 minutes away. Brick front, fenced yard, original hardwood floors upstairs. The kitchen was outdated and the basement smelled faintly like somebody's 1978 bowling shoes, but it was solid. Lucy loved it immediately. She walked into the smallest bedroom, pointed at the maple tree outside the window, and said, "This one is mine." We were supposed to close on December 27th, 2 days after Christmas. Patricia knew none of it. Dad asked me not to tell her yet, Daniel said, because he gave me a look. You know why? Yes, I said. I'd like to hear you say it. He sighed. Because he knew she'd make it a war. There it was. Everybody knew. Everybody adjusted. Everybody waited for the weather system named Patricia to pass through. What did she think the money was going to be used for? Mostly Melissa. I wasn't surprised. Melissa had been separated from her husband for 7 months and was burning through savings faster than she liked to admit. Legal fees, rent on a new place, 2 teenagers, 1 car payment she couldn't really afford. Patricia had been quietly covering things. Robert didn't mind helping Melissa. What he minded was the assumption that everything left over from the house sale should simply become Melissa's emergency fund. So he split some of it equally, I said. Right. And she thinks I talked him into giving you your share, pretty much. I leaned back. Of course she does. Daniel's phone rang. We both looked at it. Mom. He let it ring twice before answering. Hi, Mom. I could hear Patricia immediately. Not the words, the tone, sharp, fast, offended. Daniel stood and walked toward the kitchen. I followed. What do you mean, how much? He said. Dad gave me what he wanted to give me. Patricia's voice rose. Daniel held the phone away from his ear. I could make out one sentence. She put him up to this. Daniel looked at me. For years, that kind of accusation would have gotten a tired smile out of him. Maybe an eye roll. Maybe later he'd tell me, don't take it personally. This time he said, Claire didn't make Dad give me anything. Patricia answered. Daniel's mouth tightened. No, Mom. Another burst. Then came the line I'd heard more times than I could count. You've changed since you married her. Daniel went still. I waited. He said Claire didn't make me leave last night. You did. Silence. Then the call ended. Daniel stared at the phone. She hung up. Shocking. He gave me a look. I wasn't in the mood to be generous. He sat at the kitchen table. I know this doesn't fix anything. No, I'm trying. I know. And I did know. That was the uncomfortable part. He had done the right thing the night before. He was doing the right thing now. But I wasn't going to turn one decent 24-hour period into amnesty for 12 years. I sat across from him. You were there for me last night. He nodded. I'm not going to pretend you weren't. He looked relieved for half a second. Then I said, but last night didn't start last night. The relief disappeared. Good. Not because I wanted to punish him, because I needed him to understand. Patricia hadn't built that kind of contempt in one dinner, and families don't learn that one person is safe to insult overnight. Before Daniel could answer, the doorbell rang. Robert stood outside holding 2 shopping bags and looking 10 years older than he had on Christmas Eve. He came in quietly. Lucy ran toward him. Grandpa. He smiled, and for a moment he looked like himself again. Hey, Peanut. He'd brought the presents they'd left behind. He sat on the floor with her while she opened a stuffed dinosaur and a set of magnetic tiles. Then when Lucy got distracted building something that looked like a collapsing hospital, Robert came into the kitchen. I'm sorry. I looked at him. He didn't say for Patricia. That mattered. I should have stopped it sooner. Yes, I said. He nodded. No argument. Then he looked at Daniel. Your mother wants me to take the money back. I almost laughed. Can she? No. That answer came fast. The gift was mine to make. It's done. Then what's the problem? Robert rubbed a hand over his jaw. The lender still needs the final gift letter. I remembered the paperwork. Mortgage lenders like to know whether a large chunk of your down payment came from a loan, a gift, or a suitcase you found behind a bus station. Robert had already provided most of what they needed. Apparently, one final signed statement was still outstanding. The loan officer emailed it yesterday, Daniel said. Robert nodded. I was supposed to sign it this morning. I looked between them. And Patricia knows that. Yes, of course she did. Robert gave a humorless little laugh. She told me if I sign one more thing for you two, I shouldn't bother coming home. Daniel leaned back. Dad. I know. No, I don't think you do. Robert looked at him. Daniel's voice stayed calm. If you want to change your mind about the gift, say that. But don't tell me Mom scared you into it. Robert flinched. Not dramatically, just enough. I suddenly understood that this wasn't really about our mortgage paperwork. Not for Robert. He had spent most of his adult life avoiding moments exactly like this one. Patricia pushed. Robert softened. Everybody else adjusted. It was almost a family business model. I asked, when does the lender need it? Daniel checked his phone. Tomorrow morning, and if they don't get it, they may push closing. May depends on underwriting. Robert stared at the table. I could see exactly what was happening in his head. Go home. Keep Patricia calm. Tell Daniel the closing can wait. Tell everybody it's just a few days. Call that peace. I stood. Robert. He looked up. I'm not asking you to fight your wife for me, I know. But if you promised your son something, then you need to decide whether your word changes because Patricia gets angry. Daniel glanced at me. Robert was quiet for a long time. Then he nodded. I'll take care of it. He left 20 minutes later. For the rest of Christmas morning, nothing happened. No signed letter, no call. By late afternoon, Daniel was pacing between the kitchen and living room. Maybe we should just delay, he said. I looked at him. What? The house, a few days. Let this settle down. There it was. The old instinct. Wait until Mom calms down. Let everything else move around her. I said, if we delay because we want to, fine. He stopped pacing. But if we delay because your mother frightened your father out of signing one form, then nothing has changed. Daniel didn't argue. That was when his phone buzzed. An email. He opened it. For a second he just stared at the screen. Then he turned it toward me. The signed gift letter was attached. A minute later Robert called. Daniel answered on speaker. His father sounded tired, but different. I signed it. Daniel said, "You okay?" Robert exhaled. Your mother gave me an ultimatum, and I decided I'm too old to keep pretending an ultimatum is a conversation. I looked at Daniel. Robert went quiet for a second. Then he added, I should have learned a long time ago that peace you buy with somebody else's dignity isn't peace. That was the first time I heard Robert say something that made me think maybe Christmas had broken more than one old habit. It also made me wonder how many others were still waiting to come apart. The signed letter should have made me feel better. For about 12 hours it did. Then the loan officer called the morning after Christmas and reminded me that buying a house is apparently the financial equivalent of being searched at the airport. We have the gift letter, she said, and underwriting is reviewing the updated file. I just don't want to promise Friday until they sign off. So we're not cleared to close, not yet. I looked across the kitchen at Daniel. He was making coffee and pretending not to listen. What happens if they don't sign off today? We'd probably need to push closing. Probably. My least favorite word in the English language when money is involved. Okay, I said. Call me when you know. After I hung up, Daniel slid a mug toward me. Could be worse. That's what people say immediately before something gets worse. He almost smiled. Almost. The truth was, I wasn't worried that Patricia could somehow steal the house out from under us. She couldn't. What bothered me was the familiar pattern. She got angry, and suddenly everybody else's schedule changed. Robert had spent Christmas being threatened in his own home. Daniel and I were talking about delaying a closing. Melissa was calling relatives, and Patricia, as far as I knew, was sitting in her condo furious that the rest of us had somehow ruined her holiday. Around 11, someone knocked. Daniel looked through the front window. Melissa. Oh, good. Maybe she's selling cookies. Want me to tell her to leave? I thought about it. No. Melissa was standing on the porch in jeans and a long gray coat, looking nothing like the woman who'd been needling me across Patricia's Christmas table. Can I come in depends on what weather your mother sent you. She didn't. I stepped aside. Daniel took Lucy upstairs to get dressed, which I appreciated. Whatever Melissa wanted, I didn't want my daughter sitting in the middle of it. Melissa stayed standing. I came to say I'm sorry. For which part, she winced. Fair enough. For Christmas. That narrows it down to about 6 things. Claire. I waited. She finally said I should have done something when Mom hit you. Yes, I froze. So did everybody else. I know, there wasn't much to add. She sat on the edge of the couch. I didn't think she'd do that. Neither did I. And what she said about Lucy was disgusting. I looked at her carefully. That was the first time anyone besides Daniel or Robert had said it that plainly. Then Melissa ruined the moment. I just wish none of this money stuff had happened at the same time. There it was. What money stuff? She looked at me like we both knew. Dad giving Daniel all that money. He gave you the same amount. That's not the point. It feels fairly close to the point. She stood again. You don't understand what's happening with me. Then explain it. So she did. Her separation was uglier financially than she'd admitted. Her husband had moved out. Attorneys were involved. Their oldest needed braces. The lease on her SUV had turned into another problem. Patricia had been telling her for months not to worry. We'll take care of you. Melissa had heard that as a promise. Then she found out Robert had divided the money equally. I thought there'd be more available, she admitted. For you. She looked away. Yes, at least she said it. I softened a little. Not because she was entitled to Daniel's share, because fear makes people ugly sometimes. I'd been afraid of money before. Most adults have. Melissa, your father didn't take something from you and give it to Daniel. I know. Do you? She nodded. Then she said something strange. Moms never really thought this was about money anyway. What does that mean? Melissa hesitated. Do you remember when Daniel turned down Uncle Rick's job? Of course I remembered. It was maybe 8 years earlier. Daniel's uncle owned a larger electrical contracting company 2 counties over and had offered Daniel a supervisory position. Good salary, company truck. Also, long hours, family politics, and an uncle who thought weekends were a rumor. Daniel said, no, Patricia blamed me. She said I didn't want him working with his family. Melissa nodded. Mom still talks about it. I know. Melissa rubbed her palms against her jeans. You didn't tell him to turn it down. It wasn't a question. No, I know. I stared at her. How she looked toward the stairs. Daniel told me. When, back then. Something inside me went very still. He told you he said he didn't want Uncle Rick as his boss. He knew they'd end up fighting. And you knew that for 8 years. Melissa's face tightened. I didn't think it mattered this much. I gave a short laugh. Your mother has used that job as Exhibit A in the case against me for almost a decade. I know, apparently everybody knew except the defendant. Claire. Did Patricia know? No, did Daniel ever correct her? Melissa didn't answer. She didn't need to. Daniel came downstairs a few minutes later. He saw my face, then Melissa's. What happened? I looked at him. Did I make you turn down your uncle's job? He stopped. Melissa stood. I should go. Yes, I said. You should. The front door closed behind her. Daniel stayed near the stairs. No, what you didn't make me turn it down. Did your mother think I did? Yes. Did you know she thought that he rubbed the back of his neck? Yes. There are moments in a marriage when you discover something enormous. This wasn't one of them. That was almost worse. It was small, cowardly, ordinary. Exactly the kind of thing that can sit unnoticed inside a marriage for years. Why didn't you correct her? I thought she'd get over it. She brings it up every Thanksgiving. I know. She told people I was isolating you from your family. I know. She treated me like I stole some great future from you. I know. That third I know did it. I stood. What else? He frowned. What else have you let her blame me for? Because correcting her would have been uncomfortable. Claire, no, don't Claire me. Answer. He looked toward the floor. And there it was again. Silence, not confusion. Inventory. I felt more tired than angry. You actually have to think about it. I screwed up. That's not an answer, I know. I picked up my coffee. It had gone cold. Perfect. Daniel sat down at the table. I didn't sit around planning to make you the bad guy. I know you didn't. That surprised him. I continued. You just discovered it was convenient. He looked at me. Neither of us had anything useful to say after that. Around 4 that afternoon, my phone rang. The loan officer, Claire, good news. Underwriting has the signed gift documentation. We're working toward Friday. Working toward, she laughed. I know. Mortgage people have commitment issues. That got a reluctant smile out of me. After we hung up, Daniel asked, good better. The house was still moving forward. Our marriage felt considerably less certain. That evening, Robert called to check whether the paperwork had gone through. I thanked him. He said, you shouldn't have had to worry about it. Then he paused. Claire, I'm sorry about more than the form. I didn't rescue him from the silence. He continued, I've spent a lot of years telling myself Patricia calms down faster if nobody pushes back. Does she? No, that answer almost made me laugh. Robert sighed. I think maybe everybody else just got quieter. After we hung up, I found Daniel in the kitchen loading the dishwasher badly. I watched him put a saucepan where plates belonged. Under normal circumstances, I would have fixed it. I didn't. Tomorrow, I said, I want the whole list. He turned. What list? Every decision your mother blamed on me that was actually yours. He stared at me for a second, then nodded. Okay. I went upstairs. For the first time since Christmas dinner, Patricia wasn't the person I was most angry with, and somehow that frightened me more. The next morning, Daniel made the list. Not on paper. That would have been almost funny. We sat at the kitchen table while Lucy watched Bluey in the living room, and my husband walked me through 12 years of decisions I'd apparently made without knowing it. Thanksgiving at your mom's, he said. I stared at him. My mother had just lost Dad. I know. Patricia had complained for months that I'd pulled Daniel away from his family that Thanksgiving. You wanted to go? I said. Yes. Did you tell her that he looked down at his coffee? No, I nodded. Next. The Outer Banks trip. That one took me a second. You hated that rental house. I did. You said sharing 2 bathrooms with 14 people wasn't a vacation. I remember. Your mother told everyone I wouldn't let you go. I know. There was that phrase again. I pointed at him. You're going to have to retire those 2 words for a while. Fair, he continued. Daycare had been his preference too. His mother wanted to watch Lucy 3 days a week after she was born. Daniel didn't want our childcare arrangements tied to whether Patricia was happy with us that month. He'd never told her that. Then there was the down payment offer. 3 years earlier, Patricia had offered us money toward a house. I'd remembered refusing it together. What I'd forgotten was why Daniel had been so adamant. She wanted her name involved somehow, he said. And she kept talking about having a key. I remember the key. She said if she helped buy the place, she shouldn't have to call before coming over. And you said no, yes. But she thinks I said no, he nodded. I sat back. You let your mother believe I rejected her money because I didn't want her in our lives. I did. Why, his answer took a while. Then he said the ugliest, truthful thing he'd said yet. Because it was easier when she was mad at you than when she was mad at me. I looked at him. He didn't soften it. Didn't add but. Didn't tell me he'd been protecting us. Good, because he hadn't. I know I said. He looked surprised. That's the problem, Daniel. He rubbed both hands over his face. I was a coward. Yes. I thought I was keeping things from blowing up. You were. He looked at me. They just blew up on me instead. That one hurt him. I could tell. I wasn't trying to hurt him. I also wasn't going to make the truth prettier because he finally had the courage to look at it. Around noon, I packed a small bag for Lucy. Daniel appeared in the bedroom doorway. Where are you going, Susan's? For how long? A few hours. Maybe dinner. His expression changed. Are you leaving? I'm going to Susan's. You know what I mean. I zipped Lucy's little backpack. No, I'm not announcing a divorce 2 days after Christmas. He exhaled. But I need some room. Claire, I told you everything. I know. and I'm trying to fix it." I turned toward him. "Walking out of your mother's house was the first right thing." He waited. "It can't be the only one." He nodded slowly. I kissed his cheek before I left. That confused both of us. Marriage is inconvenient that way. You can be furious with somebody and still love them enough to notice they haven't eaten lunch. Susan had known me for 17 years and possessed the rare gift of letting me talk without turning my life into a courtroom drama. She gave Lucy apple slices and peanut butter, poured me coffee, and said, "So what are you going to do? I don't know." "Good," I frowned. "Good. People make terrible decisions when they decide they need an answer by Tuesday." That was Susan. Very comforting, provided you didn't require actual comfort. Later that afternoon, Melissa called. I almost ignored it. I answered mostly because I wanted to know whether Patricia had sent her again. "She didn't," Melissa said immediately. "You've developed mind reading." "No, you've developed a tone." "Fair." She asked how Daniel and I were doing. I should have said fine. Instead, I told her the truth. "I don't know if I trust him right now." Melissa was quiet. "I get that. I love him. That's not the issue. What is I need to know whether he's actually changing or just reacting because Christmas got ugly." I looked through Susan's kitchen window. Lucy was in the backyard trying to put a scarf on Susan's extremely patient Labrador. I need some room to figure that out. Melissa said she understood. That should have been the end of it. An hour later, Daniel called. "Did you tell Melissa you're leaving me?" I closed my eyes. "No, Mom just called and said you're planning to take Lucy and leave." I knew immediately. Melissa, apparently. I hung up and called her. She answered with, "Claire, I can explain." "Never," a promising opening. "You told Patricia. I didn't say you were leaving him. You told her I needed space. She was upset. She kept asking what was going on, and you carried information straight back to her. I wasn't trying to hurt you." "Melissa, you keep saying you don't want to be like your mother." Silence. "Then stop carrying information back to her." She didn't defend herself this time. "I'm sorry. I believe you." That seemed to surprise her. "But don't do it again." When Lucy and I got home, Robert's car was outside. He was sitting with Daniel in the kitchen. "I wanted to talk to you," he said. Daniel started to stand. Robert shook his head. "No, you should hear it too." He looked at me. "I owe you an apology. For Christmas, for a lot longer than Christmas." He told me that for most of his marriage he'd treated Patricia's anger like a kitchen fire. Smother it fast. Don't ask what started it. If she was angry at Daniel, smooth it over. If she was angry at Melissa, fix the problem. If she was angry at me, apparently the easiest solution was to tell me not to take it personally. "You didn't keep the peace, Robert," I said. He looked at me. "You just kept moving the discomfort onto whoever complained the least." He sat with that, then nodded. "You're right." My phone rang before I could answer. The loan officer. I stepped into the hallway. "Claire, you're clear to close Friday morning." I actually leaned against the wall. Really, 9:30. Bring your IDs and prepare to sign your name approximately 800 times. I laughed. It was the first genuine laugh I'd had since Christmas Eve. When I returned to the kitchen, Daniel could tell from my face. We're cleared. He stood and hugged me. I let him. For maybe 30 seconds, the whole mess felt smaller. We had made it through the paperwork. Robert had stood by his word. Daniel was finally telling the truth. Maybe Patricia had finally realized she'd gone too far. Then Daniel's phone buzzed. He read the message. His eyebrows lifted. He handed me the phone. It was from Patricia. I was wrong. "I want to apologize to Claire. Please bring Lucy tomorrow." I read it twice. Daniel said quietly, "That's something." It was. Patricia Bennett did not say I was wrong. Not in my experience. Maybe Robert had gotten through to her. Maybe Christmas had frightened her too. Maybe losing control for once had forced her to look at herself. I wanted to believe that. 20 minutes later, my phone rang. Daniel's Aunt Carol. After some awkward Christmas small talk, she said, "I hope you and Patricia can work this out. She's devastated. I imagine everybody is. She says you won't let her see Lucy." I looked at Daniel. Carol continued, "She thinks you're using the baby to punish her." There it was. I thanked Carol and ended the call. Daniel didn't ask. He'd heard enough. I handed him his phone back. "Your mother's apology isn't an apology." His shoulders dropped. "No, she wants access." He sat down. For once he didn't tell me to give Patricia a chance. He just said, "Then she can explain herself in front of everyone." I looked at him. Everyone who was there. Robert nodded slowly. Maybe that's what should have happened years ago. I wasn't excited about another Bennett family gathering. The last one had gone exceptionally badly. But this time Lucy wouldn't be there. And this time I wasn't going to sit quietly while everybody else decided what had happened to me. We met the next afternoon at a restaurant Robert chose about 15 minutes from his condo. Neutral territory. That was my condition. My other condition was that Lucy wouldn't be there. Susan had her for the afternoon, and when I dropped her off, Lucy barely looked up from the dollhouse long enough to say goodbye. I was grateful for that. Whatever happened at that table, my daughter had already attended one Bennett family meeting too many. When Daniel and I walked into the private dining room, everyone else was there. Robert, Patricia, Melissa, Daniel's Aunt Carol, and his cousin Mark, both of whom had been at Christmas dinner. Patricia looked behind us. "Where's Lucy?" Not hello, not how are you. "Where's Lucy? I took off my coat. She's not part of this conversation." Patricia's lips tightened. I thought the point was to put this family back together. The point is to talk about what happened. I know what happened. Good. That should save time. Daniel glanced at me. I wasn't trying to be funny. It just came out that way. We sat. Nobody ordered food. Some poor waiter came in with menus, took one look at the room, and apparently decided bread service wasn't worth dying for. Patricia started. "I asked everyone here because I want to apologize." I waited. She folded her hands on the table. "I'm sorry things got so emotional on Christmas." I kept waiting. Apparently that was it. Melissa looked down. Daniel said, "Mom." "What?" "That's not an apology. I said, I'm sorry." For what Patricia looked offended by the question. "For everything getting out of hand." I finally spoke. "You hit me 3 times. Her eyes moved to me. "Yes, Claire, I lost my temper. You hit me 3 times. I heard you." "Then say it." Robert shifted in his chair. Patricia looked around the table, maybe hoping somebody would rescue her. Nobody did. "Fine. I shouldn't have slapped you." 3 times, I said. "Oh, for God's sake." There it was. The apology had lasted about 40 seconds. Patricia leaned back. "You and Melissa were arguing. You were disrespectful in my home. I reacted badly." Melissa looked up. "Mom, don't put me in this. You were there. So was everybody else." Patricia ignored her. "I've already admitted I shouldn't have lost my temper. But Claire has spent 3 days acting as if I attacked her for no reason." Daniel said, "There is no reason that makes hitting my wife okay." Patricia turned to him. "I am talking to Claire." "No," Daniel said. "You're talking about my wife. There's a difference." I didn't look at him, but I heard it. Patricia did too. She changed direction. And this ridiculous accusation that I called Lucy trash needs to stop. My stomach tightened. "You did." "No, I was angry. I pointed toward the door and told you to take your things and leave." I stared at her. That wasn't even close to what she'd said. "You pointed at Lucy." "I did not." "Yes, you did." I think I would remember. Melissa spoke before I could. "Mom." Patricia looked at her. "You pointed right at Lucy." The room went very still. Patricia blinked. Melissa swallowed. "You said, 'Take that trash and get out.'" You were looking at her. "Melissa, stay out of this." I was sitting 6 feet away. You were upset. So was Claire. That doesn't mean she imagined it. Patricia stared at her daughter like Melissa had switched languages mid-sentence. Then she looked at Robert. He didn't help. That was when Patricia stopped apologizing altogether. You know what she said. I'm tired of being made into some kind of monster because Claire is sensitive about where she came from. There it was. The old weapon. Class, my childhood. The little duplex my parents rented. My father's work shirts, my mother's coupons. Things Patricia had never insulted directly enough for Daniel to call cruel, but never subtly enough for me to miss. She has always had a chip on her shoulder, Patricia continued. From the beginning. Daniel had opportunities before he married her. He could have gone into business with Rick. No, Daniel said it quietly. Patricia stopped. What Claire didn't make me turn down Uncle Rick's job. Patricia frowned. I know what happened. No, you don't. He leaned forward. I didn't want the job. I didn't want Uncle Rick as my boss. Claire told me to make my own decision. Patricia looked at me, then back at him. Daniel continued. She didn't make me skip the Outer Banks trip either. I didn't want to go. Daniel and Thanksgiving at her mother's, my decision. Patricia's face had changed. The daycare thing. Me. Turning down your down payment offer? Also me. She stared at him. Then why didn't you tell me Daniel was quiet for a second? Because I was a coward. Nobody moved. He looked at me before continuing. I let you blame Claire because it was easier than having you angry at me. Patricia shook her head. That's ridiculous. No, it's true. So now you're blaming me for your marriage problems? Daniel almost smiled. No, I'm blaming myself for mine. That shut her up for a few seconds. Then she turned back to me. Fine. Apparently everybody has decided you're completely innocent. I didn't say that. Then, what do you want, Claire? I want you to stop lying about Christmas. I am not lying. Patricia and Lucy is 3 years old. She doesn't even understand what I said. That did it. I heard my own voice before I had time to manage it. She watched you hit her mother 3 times. Nobody at the table moved. Even Patricia went quiet. I lowered my voice. She didn't need to understand the word. She understood you were pointing at her. She understood you were yelling. She understood everybody at that table was afraid to stop you. Patricia's face reddened. Stop making me sound like some monster. Then stop asking us to rewrite Christmas. She pushed her chair back. I'm done. Robert said, Patty. No. Apparently, this is a trial now. She stood and grabbed her purse. Then she looked at Daniel. Come on, we're leaving. Daniel didn't move. Patricia waited. Daniel. He remained seated beside me. I'm sitting with my wife. I've known my husband for 14 years. I've heard him say more impressive things, more romantic things, certainly longer things. Nothing ever meant more to me than those 5 words. Patricia stared at him. So, this is what she wanted. No, Daniel said. This is what I should have done years ago. She looked at me. What exactly are you demanding? I'm not demanding anything. You're keeping my granddaughter from me. For now, yes. Her mouth opened. I kept going. If you want a normal relationship with Lucy again, you need to acknowledge that you hit me. You need to acknowledge what you called her, and you need to stop treating every decision Daniel makes as something I did to you. Patricia gave a bitter laugh. So I have to beg no, I shook my head. You have to take responsibility. She turned to Robert. I saw the old reflex in her face. Fix this. Robert didn't. Instead he said, You threw a 3-year-old out of our home on Christmas. I did not throw Lucy, I was there, Patty. She stopped. Robert continued. And while we're clearing things up, Daniel's money stays with Daniel. Melissa's stays with Melissa. I'm not taking anything back. Patricia looked around the table. For once there was nobody left to rearrange reality for her. She picked up her coat and walked out. Nobody followed. The door closed. For several seconds all I could hear was the restaurant music coming faintly through the wall. Melissa looked at me. I should have stopped her on Christmas. Yes, I said. She nodded. And I shouldn't have told Mom what you said about Daniel. No, I'm sorry. I believed her. That didn't magically repair anything. But it was honest. I appreciate you saying it. Robert stared at the empty chair where his wife had been. Daniel reached under the table and took my hand. This time, I let him keep it. The next morning at 9:30, we were supposed to close on our house. A week earlier, I'd thought signing those papers would be the biggest decision I made that month. By then, the house was almost the easy part. The harder question was whether Daniel and I could build something different inside it. The next morning, I signed my name 27 times. I counted. Our loan officer had warned me it would feel like 800, so 27 seemed almost reasonable. Daniel and I sat side by side in a conference room at the title company, while a woman named Joanne slid papers across the table and explained taxes, escrow, insurance, and several other things I would have sworn we'd already discussed 6 times. Lucy was with Susan again. I was grateful. Buying a house is exciting for adults. For a 3-year-old, it's mostly watching your parents sign paper while being told not to touch a stapler. Joanne handed Daniel another document. He signed it, then passed the pen to me. "No more hiding behind you," he said quietly. Joanne glanced up. I imagined she'd heard stranger things at closings. I looked at my husband. "Then don't." I signed. That was it. No grand declaration. No promise that everything between us was suddenly fixed. Just 2 people putting their names on the same page and understanding that the harder agreement wasn't written there. By lunchtime, we had the keys. When we picked Lucy up and drove to the house, she screamed before Daniel had completely stopped the car. "My tree." She meant the maple outside her bedroom. She ran through the front door, up the stairs, and directly into the smallest bedroom. "This is mine." Daniel leaned against the doorway. "We gathered that." She pointed at the window. "And the tree. The tree is outside. My tree is outside. Apparently property law worked differently when you were 3. We ate pizza on the living room floor because our furniture wasn't coming until the next day. There were cardboard boxes everywhere, no curtains, and 1 light fixture in the hallway that made a faint buzzing sound. It was perfect. Not because it was some dream house, it wasn't. The kitchen cabinets were older than our marriage, and the upstairs bathroom had a blue sink that looked like it had survived several presidential administrations. But nobody could walk through the front door because they believed family entitled them to do it. That afternoon, Daniel came back from the hardware store holding 2 extra keys. He put one on my key ring. Then he held up the other. "Who gets this one?" I looked at it. 3 years earlier, Patricia had offered us down payment money and talked about her future house key before we'd even looked at a house. I opened the kitchen junk drawer. Nobody yet. Daniel dropped it inside. "Works for me?" Patricia didn't speak to me for almost 6 weeks. She spoke about me quite a bit. I know because relatives have a remarkable ability to deliver information nobody requested. One aunt called Daniel to say his mother was heartbroken. Another said Patricia felt we'd taken her granddaughter away. Daniel stopped explaining. That was new. He'd say Mom knows what happened, or she knows what she needs to do. Then he'd change the subject. He didn't say Claire isn't comfortable. He didn't say Claire thinks we should wait. He didn't make me the border guard anymore. They were his boundaries, too. Robert changed in quieter ways. Patricia tried using him as a messenger at first. "Your mother wants to know if Lucy can come over Sunday." Daniel asked, "Does Mom have my number?" Robert laughed. Point taken. A couple of weeks later, he told us he'd started seeing a counselor. I was surprised. "So you and Patricia are going together?" "No," he shook his head. "This one's for me." He said he'd spent 45 years believing that avoiding conflict made him easygoing. His counselor had apparently introduced him to the inconvenient possibility that sometimes it just made him unavailable. "I liked my version better," he told me. "I bet." Melissa and I took longer. She apologized again for repeating what I'd told her. I accepted it. That didn't mean I started calling her every afternoon. Trust isn't a light switch. But she stopped defending Patricia automatically, and I stopped assuming every phone call from her came with an agenda. During her separation, she also began handling more of her own financial problems, instead of letting Patricia promise to fix everything. We became civil, then occasionally friendly. For sisters-in-law, that qualified as significant progress. Patricia finally called me in February. "Can we meet?" I almost said no. Instead, we met at a coffee shop halfway between our houses, public, neutral. Old habits die hard. She arrived before me. For the first 10 minutes she talked around Christmas. She'd been under stress. Melissa's separation had worried her. Selling the old house had been emotional. She'd had wine. She felt excluded from Daniel's plans. I listened. Then I picked up my purse. Patricia stopped. "Where are you going home? I haven't finished." "I think you have." She stared at me. I stood. Then she said, "Claire." Something in her voice made me wait. She looked down at her coffee. "I hit you." I sat back down. She swallowed. 3 times. I said nothing. And I called Lucy trash. There was a long pause. There isn't an excuse for either one. That was all I'd wanted from her. Not humiliation, not begging, reality. "Thank you for saying what actually happened." She nodded. Then, because she was still Patricia, she waited approximately 15 seconds before asking, "When can I see Lucy?" I almost smiled. "Daniel and I will talk about it." She didn't like that answer, but she accepted it. The first visit was the following weekend, 1 hour at our house. Daniel and I were both there. Patricia brought Lucy a coloring book, and to her credit didn't arrive with a truckload of guilt disguised as presents. Things weren't magically normal afterward. Sometimes Patricia slipped. She'd criticize something I cooked or tell Daniel what we needed to do with the yard. Now Daniel corrected her. "Mom, we're good." Sometimes she'd get irritated. Sometimes we'd end the visit. She learned. Slowly, so did we. By the following Christmas, I decided I wanted to host dinner. Not 20 people, not a performance, just Robert, Patricia, Melissa, and her kids, Susan, and us. Halfway through dinner, Lucy knocked over the cranberry sauce. It slid across the tablecloth in one spectacular red wave. Everybody froze, even I did. Patricia looked at the mess, then at Lucy. Lucy looked terrified. Patricia stood, grabbed a dish towel, and said, "Well, that's why somebody invented washing machines." I laughed. I couldn't help it. Robert laughed too. The room relaxed. And no, that moment didn't erase the Christmas before. I didn't want it to. For years I'd confused endurance with maturity. I thought being a good wife meant absorbing one more insult, because answering back might make dinner uncomfortable. Daniel thought being a good son meant keeping his mother calm. Robert thought being a good husband meant preventing arguments. Melissa thought accepting Patricia's help meant accepting Patricia's version of everything. We had all called it peace. Mostly it was fear with better manners. Later that night, Lucy stood in front of our Christmas tree hanging ornaments. She put one silver star about 3 inches from the floor. Daniel bent down and moved it higher. Lucy frowned, took it off, and put it right back where she'd had it. I said I'd leave it. Daniel raised both hands. "I'm learning. After everyone went home, I was putting away leftovers when I opened the kitchen junk drawer. The spare key was still there. Patricia didn't have it. Robert didn't have it. Melissa didn't have it. Maybe someday somebody would. That wasn't really the point anymore. For years, Patricia had acted as if she was deciding whether I belonged in her family. It took me until 44 to understand she'd been asking the wrong question. I already had a family, and this time nobody else got to decide what happened inside its front door. If you've ever had to draw a boundary with someone you still loved, you probably know it isn't as simple as walking away. Sometimes the hardest part is learning how to stay without disappearing.